Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be talking about my top 10 beginner-friendly discs that I would recommend to you. Hey guys, quick thing I want to mention before we get into this video. I really want to talk about player progression. While all these discs I will mention will be beginner-friendly, some of them will be slightly more difficult to use than others. So it's important to note that nobody knows yourself better than you. If you feel like you're going to progress quickly, you should maybe pick one disc. Or if you feel like taking things slow and you don't progress as fast, that's no worries too. You can pick another disc in this list. I'll make sure to point out each of these discs' differences and how they relate to your progression as a player. But that's about it. Let's get back to the video. So now that you know a little bit more about your progression as a disc golfer, let's get started on the list. The first disc I would recommend for a beginner disc golfer is the MVP Glitch. And with flight numbers of 1700, it is a disc that is slower speed, but it wants to stay in the air and it wants to fly very straight. And it's a disc that's going to fly a lot like that ultimate frisbee you've thrown or a disc you've thrown at the beach. It has a similar shape, similar feel in the hand. Also, I highly recommend this disc because it is a hybrid catch disc. So if your coworker invited you to play some disc golf and you're not really sure if you're really going to stay in the sport or if you're like really fully interested in buying other discs, you can't go wrong with the Glitch because you can use this disc at the park, at the beach, anywhere you play catch. Since you could use this in different scenarios, you can use it to play catch anywhere, or you can play disc golf with it. I highly recommend this disc for a beginner that is looking to start disc golf. The next two discs I'm going to be talking about are a little bit similar, but I'll go over each of them separately. The second disc I would recommend in this list is the Latitude 64 Pearl. With flight numbers 46-40, it is a little bit faster than the Glitch I just showed you, but it's much more understable. And it has a little bit of that slimmer profile, more like a disc golf disc. I would recommend this disc for players that are not confident in their abilities in throwing a frisbee, or for kids that are looking to get into the sport. You can't go wrong with a Latitude 64 Pearl. It is a disc that wants to stay in the air, fly straight, and be very easy to throw. And that brings me into my next disc, which is the Innova Rolo, which is very similar to the Latitude 64 Pearl I just showed you. It is a disc that wants to stay in the air for a very long time, especially for those lower arm speed players, whether you're a kid or a person that's not confident in throwing a frisbee. You can't go wrong with this disc either. And so getting into the next disc in this list, we have the Discraft Fierce. And so the Discraft Fierce, with the flight numbers of 34, -20, is a little bit slower than the discs I mentioned before, but with it lacks in speed, it has a little bit more control. And so this disc will be for players with that are a little bit more confident in their frisbee throwing abilities. For players that are total beginners, or for kids, this also isn't a bad option. It just won't be as easy to throw as the ones I mentioned before. So for players with just a little bit more arm speed, just are confident in their frisbee throwing abilities, I would recommend the Fierce. It'll go straight, fly straight, and land straight. And that's the most important thing with starting off in disc golf, is a disc that flies straight and a disc that flies far. So highly recommend a Fierce. Let's get into the fifth disc in this list. We have the Latitude 64 Fuse. And so with flight numbers of 56, -10, it is a similar speed to the Rolo and Pearl. However, it's a little bit more controllable. So same thing with that Fierce, it's just a little bit faster than that Fierce. And so it's a mid-range disc that's going to want to fly very straight and very far. Definitely a little bit further than that Fierce. So for players that are looking to get a mid-range, that are semi-confident in their throwing abilities, you can't go wrong with the Fuse. And speaking of mid-ranges, I'll bring up the sixth disc in this list, which is the MVP Detour. And similar to the Fuse, it is a very straight flying mid-range for a beginner. It's a disc that has all the same characteristics of that Fuse. It just looks a little different, a little bit flatter in the profile comparative to the Fuse, but it should fly pretty similar, and in my opinion has pretty cool swirly looking plastic. So if you're looking for a disc with a little bit of cool colorways, I would highly recommend a Detour. Those discs I just mentioned before were all mid-ranges and below, so mid-ranges to putters. The next discs I'm going to be getting into are a little bit faster speed, so between 6 and 7 speed. So this is your fairway driver slot. And even though these discs are fairway drivers a little bit faster, they will still very much be beginner friendly. The first disc I want to bring up is the DGA Vortex. This is a disc that is very much beginner friendly with the flight numbers of 7.6, -3.1. It's a disc that wants to stay in the air and fly very far for those beginner throwers. It is a disc I've recommended countless times in my shop, and I probably will continue to recommend it as long as I stock it. Next disc is the Latitude 64 Diamond. Very similar to that DGA Vortex. It is a very, very understable disc. It wants to stay in the air for a very long time, even coined by them as an easy to use driver. That's a disc you can't go wrong with. This is definitely one of the most popular beginner friendly drivers of all time. So highly recommended Diamond. Now, the last two discs I'm going to be talking about are a little bit more disc golf-esque, and even though they are still beginner friendly, they won't necessarily fly as far as the other discs if you don't have the arm speed to match it. The 9th disc in this list is the Innova Leopard. It's a disc recommended by many online, and for good reason. It's a disc that is a little bit more disc golf shaped. It has a very flat wing, similar to those last two discs I showed you. It's a disc that going to be a little bit different than the discs I mentioned before, as it'll have more of like an S-shaped flight. So if you don't have the arm speed for it, you'll notice that the disc will want to stray away from flying straight. It'll want to fade out left or right, depending on if you're a left-handed thrower or right-handed thrower. And so if you notice that, this disc might be a little too fast for you. However, it's a disc, if you continue to play, you're a month or two in, it's a disc that will be easily usable. If you stick with disc golf for just a little bit, it'll be very easy to use the better you get. Innova Leopard, a disc I would highly recommend as a beginner. And now getting into the last disc in this list, I have the Dynamic Discs Maverick. Very similar to that Leopard I just showed you. It's a disc that's going to want to stray away from flying straight compared to those other discs. But if you have the arm speed for it, it'll want to fly further. If you've been playing for about a month, you feel a little bit more confident in your abilities, or you're up for a little bit of a challenge, I would highly recommend Dynamic Disc Maverick. It's not like this disc is hard to use by any means. The more you play disc golf, the better this disc will get, similar to all of these discs. But besides that, that kind of concludes this video. These were the top 10 discs that I would personally recommend to any beginner player. I really hope you found this video useful. Before I end this video, there's a couple things I want to mention. First, I'm a disc golf store owner, so if you're ever in the Santa Cruz area, you could come by to Disc Zone. I have a shop there. Feel free to stop by. I'd be happy to help you guys out. And also, if you're not in the area, I do have an online disc golf store. Check it out at www.disczone.com. That would really mean a lot. If you guys could like and subscribe too, I would be very appreciative of that. I want to thank you guys for watching. I appreciate all your support. If you're new to the channel, thanks for watching. And if you're still here, I appreciate you guys just as much. Yeah, besides that, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.